our third partner was kind of the business expertise in the situation, and he put together all the legal and the accounting and things like that, and it was all fine. But like at the time, we didn't look through any of the documents. Like I'll be honest, like it was just paperwork in front of me. I just signed it kind of blindly and just trusted. And I think the one thing I've learned more than anything in business is I'm by nature I'm probably too much of a trusting person, and which is I'm happy to be, but you've got to make sure you read the paperwork and make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. I think I learned the hard way with that a little bit.
Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to season 4 of Legacy's Journey, where we talk about creating what outlives you. I'm your host, Cameron Williams, owner of Kinley Consulting, where we focus on strategic financial growth for marketing agencies so that they can live the dream life they deserve and not be a slave to their business. And we do that through CFO services and consulting. Now, this is season 4, where we focus on companies who've either bought, sold, are scaling really fast, or just overall excelling. Now, today's guest, we're bringing to you live, of course, podcast style. And I'm just going to let him just jump right on into it. Welcome to the podcast, Jared. Tell us name of company, and what do you do to serve the people?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me, Cameron. Jared, I'm a CEO, co-founder of the One Group Agency. We're based in Vancouver, BC, Canada. We're a full service marketing agency. So everything from content creation, digital ads, web development, graphic design, social media. Full service, do everything.
All right. Now, tell us a little bit about how you got started, because everybody always is like, oh, you're doing all this stuff now. You're making the millions. You got the huge team. But take us back towards the beginning. Tell us how'd you got started, the why, and how you got into it.
Yeah, for sure. So I'd been in marketing for a long time, spent about 10, 15 years in sports marketing. Kind of grew up always, being around in marketing positions, things like that. And in 2018, a buddy of mine who was a content creator, we decided we wanted to go out on our own and do our own thing. So when we first started, it was just the two of us, the two partners. We kind of nickel and dimed everything we could, did everything ourselves. He was doing all the photo video work. I was doing all the social media, all the consulting for clients. And then when the pandemic hit, coming out of that, there was some subsidies to hire staff. So we started kind of gradually growing, and we kind of took a shot. We said, hey, we can hire a few people here to try to better service clients and expand a little bit, and some of that would be subsidized. And if it doesn't work in 6 months when the subsidies are done, we would just kind of go back to what we were doing before, which was working. But we were fortunate. We grew the business quite a bit during that time, to the point where we were up to about 10 to 12 staff, and things were going really well. We hit a bit of a stumbling block along the way. It was an interesting experience. Long story short, we had a third partner originally. We had some disagreements there, and he actually unfortunately went bankrupt in his main business. So we separated there. The cool thing that came out of that was we actually went through a massive rebrand and reorg. We were originally search and rescue marketing, and that kind of forced us to reevaluate what we were doing and what we had done well and what we would like to do better, I guess. And allowed us to refocus on who we were as a business and what we wanted to accomplish moving forward, right? So with that, we rebranded to the One Group Agency. We've been doing that for 2 years. And then a year ago, we purchased another agency out of Vancouver that was really hospitality focused and content focused on like big ad campaigns. And that's really expanded our business and who we are and what we do to be able to really service everything from small to large business. Because when we started, we were really just focused on small, kind of like mom and pop shops. Since the acquisition a year and a half ago, we've been fortunate to work all over the world and work with some of the larger hotel chains in North America and beyond. And yeah, it's been a massive learning curve, but it's been fun.
See, told y'all, never fails. Never fails. Everybody laughs on like the pre-call part where I'm like, you going to say something really smart and genius, and they all be like, yeah. But it never fails. Okay, he's just said a lot right there, y'all. So, hey, we can get into partnerships, splits, and identifying the right ones. He talked about rebranding. He talked about acquisition. So let's start with the harder one first. Let's talk through, okay, we got 3 partners, but now we're having to split and go our separate ways. Talk us through, in hindsight, What would you wish you had known that you would have had set up in place to make that process smoother? And just overall, like, hey, when a partner is leaving, I would strongly suggest if you're in a partnership, you should have these things in place.
Yeah, for sure. So when we started the business in 2018, so Matt Bork is my other partner who's still with us at one group and still my partner, and it was us who kind of were running the business. We were both super green. Like we had worked for someone else our whole lives up to that point, so we didn't have a ton of experience. Our third partner was kind of the business expertise in the situation, and he put together all the legal and the accounting and things like that, and it was all fine. But like at the time, we didn't look through any of the documents. Like I'll be honest, like it was just paperwork in front of me. I just signed it kind of blindly and just trusted. And I think the one thing I've learned more than anything in business is I'm by nature I'm probably too much of a trusting person, and which is I'm happy to be, but you've got to make sure you read the paperwork and make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. I think I learned the hard way with that a little bit in that example. I think in terms of when you start a business and there's partners involved, and people will tell you this, make sure you plan for the worst and or the unexpected, and make sure all those elements are covered in the partnership agreement. I think everybody gets into it and gets going, and they're excited and they're optimistic as they should be, but they're not thinking about worst case scenarios. Well, I've been through a few scenarios where those things play out, and I wish I had thought about them, previously, and I didn't. So I think having all those potential impacts and scenarios outlined and how to deal with them, addressed in the partnership agreements is crucial.
You said the key word there, partnership agreement. Let's go there because some people, I only know this because I'm doing the accounting for them. Oh, I need to have an agreement. Tell us, like, what are the, if nothing else, top 3 to 4 things you need to make sure you have in this agreement? And yes, if you're a partner, I know y'all best friends or y'all go to church together or go to a gym, but you still need it written out. Tell us what we should have in those.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I think an understanding of the operating agreement and how the business is going to be run and how those responsibilities are shared or not shared with the partners. I think in that with the three of us originally, like we knew it was going to be Matt and I running the business, and that the third partner was going to be silent, and that was fine. And so I think, but having the detail in terms of like expectations and obligations, and even as far as like roles and responsibilities and a job description, if applicable, can go a long way in eliminating any of the gray area. And I think eliminating the gray area is probably the most important kind of overarching thing. Is the more black and white you can make things in a partnership agreement, the easier it'll be, no matter what the circumstance. I think having details about potential exits is important, regardless of the reason for those exits. I think everybody being on the same page for what that can look like will make it a lot easier when it comes up, and inevitably it will, like whether it's growth or lifestyle changes, whatever the case may be. Like there's just so many things that can impact it. Kind of an odd one, but I think it's an important one. Getting a little bit older, you start to think about family and the legacy and all those types of things. And so what happens if a partner passes away, and it's it's a delicate situation, and depending on your partner's involvement in the business. Sorry, when I say partner, like my wife or my partner's wives, like what happens if one of us were to pass away? Like what happens to the company? And then the last and probably right up there in terms of importance is how dividend sharing works. Like again, when you're in a situation where certain partners are controlling the business and like operating as the managing partner, I think being on the same page with how any profit sharing is handled is important, because again, you don't want to be having that conversation 3 years in, if you've had a good couple of years and there's a bunch of money there, and now you're debating how you're going to split that up, and what the mentality was day one is probably going to look pretty different year three. So
Facts. Okay. I just wanted to pause here because, I mean, even on our side, in working with partnerships, we see this all the time. We're literally helping a client now, and every single thing he just told you is true. You don't want any gray areas. Be very specific. Like you said obligations, roles, job descriptions, who's responsible for what, any additional details about how money gets spent or what's that threshold that requires management sign off or not. You talked about detailing about exits. One of my buddies calls it the 4 Ds. I think it's like death, divorce, and I always forget the other two. But like, what does that look like when we get there? And then, like you said, what is profit share? And this is where a ton of people get stuck, because from a profit share perspective, is it just, do we pull it just because we got it? Do we all got to pull the same number? Do we pull it based on percentage? Do we pull it every time or randomly or after the quarter? These are definitely things that you want to talk through, because like you said at the beginning, we're all hungry. We all got the best intentions. Versus now we got 100K in the bank or 50K, whatever. Well, I need a little bit more than you because. So I love how you talked us through that. All right, now let's go the other way. So you said last year you purchased a company. Walk us through having had to buy a piece from the silent partner versus, no, I'm buying a brand new company. Give us your top 3 things you learned from doing this acquisition, because we know everybody right now, oh, I want to buy another agency. This is the best way to grow. Walk us through like the top 3 things you learned from your process.
Yeah, it was a unique situation for us. This agency actually had launched right around the same time we did. I knew the husband and wife that owned that agency fairly well. We had worked together in the past. They had just had some life changes. Like they were moving out of the mainland, and they were looking to kind of make sure that their team and their clients were set up for success moving forward. They didn't want to just leave it to flounder or in the wrong hands, I suppose. And they were kind of acknowledging that they couldn't run it to the capacity that they wanted to anymore. So they had just kind of reached out before they even went to market. So it wasn't a situation where we were necessarily competing with other potential buyers or anything like that. That being said, I mean, you still have to do your due diligence. Like when you're in the business yourself, and just looking at your own business, you're usually, I would say, more rose-colored glasses in terms of how things are going than maybe what might be under the hood. And so I think really doing a deep dive into like what's actually happening in that business before you actually purchase or acquire that another business in the same area. I think looking at and analyzing reasons as to why you'd be interested in that acquisition for us. Because we started super small, I would say we were lacking some infrastructure that this agency had, and whether it's workflows and processes or things like that, that we felt would fast track our growth in terms of being able to build that infrastructure to grow our revenue. And then the most obvious one is their client book and looking at like what that would do for our business, and where we were at that point when we acquired them was that we were doing well, and things were moving in a good direction, but they were not in a super quick way or anything like that. And I think the scope I was trying to look through was how can I position us to be in a position to have some longevity and be relevant 10, 15 years from now, and be a bit more of a player. And the team that we acquired, like exceptionally talented, and some of the clients that they had just kind of elevated our brand in terms of like who we were and what we were capable of, and how we could put ourselves forward in terms of pitching to new clients.
There you go. So very strategic in regards to this acquisition is going to help us in a very specific way by doing this. I love that. And I think a lot of times, like you're saying, people just buy because, oh, it's a good idea, versus you're like, no, they got some infrastructure. We could use this. We could use that. Now, you talked about how they opened you up to like a different vertical. You said you got to work with some large hotels versus prior you may have focused on a specific thing. Talk us through that, because you and I both know everybody, oh, the riches is in the niches. You're supposed to only work with this particular thing versus like, well, we have the opportunity. It's a newer deal, but there's some growth opportunity here. Walk us through your mindset there.
Yeah, I mean, we've always been really different that way. Like, there's a lot of agencies that, like you said, they focus on certain categories, and we've always been all over the map, and for better or worse, I would say. Like, we when we started out, it was probably just a matter of being hungry and wanting to generate enough revenue to make the business sustainable. So it was like, who am I to turn away opportunity. And if somebody comes to us and they need services that we can offer, like, does it matter if they're in automotive or in retail? No, like we'll handle it because it's an opportunity for us to grow and become, viable. But what I would say, like, part of the challenge there is that some clients and some potential customers are looking for companies that do specialize in their categories. And I look at it more like, hey, if we can, take, borrow and steal ideas from other industries and other categories that could help your business, and that's a benefit, to us and what we can do for you, because there's a lot of times like different strategies and ideas are being used in retail, and they're killing it over there, and nobody in professional services are even thinking that way. And so if we can implement that over there, it's a big thing. With the acquisition, it was more a matter of like client base in terms of like opening our abilities that way. Like because we were dealing in small to medium business, I just don't think our portfolio was putting us on a stage. And there's an element, I mean, everybody wants to have the newest, coolest shoes or car or whatever it is, right? And we were, everybody wanted the Nikes, and maybe we were still rocking the Reeboks or whatever it was. And so the people who were rocking the Nikes weren't necessarily looking at us for content creation or social media, those things. But when we acquired this other agency, because of their talent and their skills and their portfolio, now all of a sudden we could present to a totally different market and really a different level of showcase, I would say. And so that's what that did, was it wasn't so much about a specific category. It's just like, okay, yeah, like we can do the mom and pop's pizza shop on the corner, and do a good job for them, but now we can also do a brand that's got 47 locations across Canada, and we know what we're doing on both levels and can service that.
I love that. Now you realize though you just made some people mad because everybody riches in the niches, and you're like, I mean, no hate, but if I can help them, I can help them.
I just don't think that, like, I understand. I mean, the master of what's the master of none, expert of whatever, the saying I'm trying to get out of there. But like, I understand there's some value in really being dialed in on specific categories, and there's a time and a place for that. But I think you're pigeonholing yourself a little bit and missing out on other opportunities, right? And that might exist elsewhere, and especially with these days with AI and all the different technology, and things changing at such a rapid pace. Like, a lot of industries are getting left behind because they're not looking outside their own box, right? And so by bringing in an agency like us, or whatever staff, whoever it is, that have experience in different worlds, you might be opening doors that you didn't realize were even there for you.
Oh, okay. You really setting it off right now. Very, very against the grain. I like it. I'm here for it. We here for a little controversy. So hey, he's saying, hey, I get all that. That's great. But with AI coming, we want to hedge our bets. Let's talk through that, because I think, to your point, we get so scared of AI and it's going to come take away this niche or take away this thing, versus you're kind of going, well, my way to combat that is just diversifying, do great work. Talk me through that mindset, because I would say, based on all the people I talk to, you'll be going against the grain. Walk me through that.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the initial response to that kind of stuff is to probably be nervous, and like, I'm not going to pretend that especially with AI specifically, like there haven't been times where I've been like, man, like, what's this going to look like for us in 5 years, right? Like, a lot of the and the stuff you see the most of with AI is content creation, like everybody using it to create whatever it is they want to create. And so even though AI is a lot deeper than that, and it's doing a lot more things than just content creation, that seems to be the focus, by the general public and the people we talk to. So yeah, so for me, obviously the first thing I think of was like, man, like, this thing's like coming right at us for sure. But I think, and I kind of learned this philosophy working in sports. Like, I worked in junior hockey for years, and one of the things I used to love doing in the off season was like rounding up ideas that like minor league baseball teams were doing, and different other sports organizations were doing, and trying to implement, like, hey, we could do that here, and like for our team. And so to me, with the marketing, it's the same thing. Like, it's trying to be open-minded and not always thinking that I've got the best path or the best ideas or that our team does, like trying to learn and adapt. And so with AI specifically, it's okay. Like it's here, like obviously we can't control it. So what are we going to do to, make it or help it benefit our clients, and then, adjust our processes to utilize it better and be on top of it, which is hard because like I'm not 25. I'm older, relative to like the media game, right? So it's like, it's tough to break out of those old habits and stuff like that. And you know, again, like luckily for me, we've got a team of people that are way more savvy than I am with that stuff. But it's looking at it differently, and we've got to, whether it's adjusting our pricing models, whether it's adjusting, how much time we spend on client projects. It's like, the old traditional, PR firms of the past. Where it was just all about like the traditional media and the campaigns, and not holistic approaches that exist now. Or you've got to look at it that way. Otherwise, you are going to be in trouble, and you do have something to be worried.
Great point. Great point. Now, conversely, though, to your point, everybody does use AI now. So, what are some of the ways that you're finding it's helping you guys to amplify your team and give even better service? Because I think a lot of people, I don't know if right or wrong, we'll leave that to the crowd. But hey, like it's just gonna take our jobs. Versus there are some people that are like, no, I can use this to amplify and do what we do even better at an even greater level or help our team, etc. How are you using AI to continue to give this great service and now expand to these different verticals?
Yeah, the easiest way to explain it is just trying to create efficiencies, right? I think AI is like any other skill, in that, like, you know, Joe Blow Public, who doesn't, spend a lot of time on the platform, if they go on to whatever, AI platform to try and, whether it's, create social media posts or content or whatever, if they don't understand how to properly utilize it, they're going to have challenges, right? And so it's no different than, working a camera to create awesome video, or understanding social media to, be able to perform there. So I think, at the end of the day, like as it exists currently, there's still a skill set required to be able to utilize it properly. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that we are learning that skill set and being able to implement it in different ways. And so what that might be, mean for our clients and our team is, utilizing it to create like a baseline for, content creation, whether it's, copywriting and social media, all those things. Yeah, we're still going to make sure we have that human touch on it, and take the necessary steps to make sure it's outputting what we want. But and then if we can create a more efficient process and it takes less time, then we can offer more affordable price points for our clients, and become a more approachable service for other people out there. That's, one of the things we're looking at right now is subscription servicing, where it's, really easy point of entry, similar to what you see out there with like a lot of AI platforms, but there's a, human on the other side of the phone, talking your strategy and getting some of that information and just basically doing that AI work for you.
Okay. I love it. I love it. All right. Let's keep rolling here. Now, in regards to the agency side, like let's go a little bit deeper in regards to the numbers, because I know, because now you've got a partner and bought them out. Now we've talked about acquisition and the prices and all the things that come with that. What is one money lesson that you had to learn the hard way that you wish somebody would have told you sooner?
I mean,
Ooh.
right, not really. Right off the bat, like just the whole tax game was interesting. Like you just don't, when you get into business on your own, like again, like having worked for someone for most of my life at that point, you just don't understand the tax implications and like, or like the not implications, responsibilities, right? Like, whether it's employment tax, whether it's, sales tax, all that stuff. Like, and, I remember the first few months, like, the money is rolling in, like not rolling in, but like it's, you're starting to generate some income and some revenue. And then you forget that, oh wait, like I gotta, like pay the, the government, the corporate tax and the, payroll tax and all those things, like I said. So like that was a real quick one. But I think really the biggest lesson is contingency planning, I guess, and just making sure, like going back to even like the profit sharing conversation before, like you have to know, you have to understand like what you need in the bank to be stable and safe and protect yourself. Like the one thing about the agency world is that it's super fluid. Right? One of the things we've always tried to protect ourselves or guard ourselves against is massive impact from client fluctuation. Right, like you don't want to be in a spot where if you lose one client, now you've got to you're kind of up the creek without a paddle. You got to like let go staff or whatever. Like we've tried to always guard ourselves against that and making sure that we have the appropriate cash flow like accessible in the bank at all times to deal with stuff because things happen. Like you drop a camera and it's a $6,000 cost, or you lose a client and all of a sudden you're down 10 grand a month or whatever the case may be, and you need to be able to give yourself time to recover from that.
Okay, I like that. I like that. The infamous taxes. Trust me, we just tax season. The
Yeah,
people feel your pain. They feel
yeah,
your
yeah, not fun.
Okay, here we go. 12 months from now, so Q2 of next year, what's one big win you'd love to be celebrating?
We the last, I would say, 6 months, with the economy being in the state it is, we've had a lot of fluctuation with clients. I'd like to be at a point where we're just in a much more stable position and really well established with our existing clients. We've always really worked hard to maintain, like we've had some clients since day one. Like we still have 80% of our first batch of clients. So, but with the acquisition a year ago, like there's been a lot of instability with that, as you can imagine. Whether it's team and just kind of making sure we've got the right people remaining. A bit more client turnover than we're used to. So I want to be back at a position of stability where we can go back to pitching some of the big whales out there and get in front of some new business that we haven't been able to do in the last year.
Oh, and talk me through that because I completely forgot to ask that question. Like, okay, you did the acquisition. What is it like trying to merge cultures? Because I'm sure there are clients that are used to it being done a certain way. So, what does that look like? And then, if you took on any team members, like infusing them into the 10 to 12 people you already had and the great job you were doing, talk us through that because I think a lot of people just think, I bought it, I'm making more money, yay, when it's way more complicated than that.
And it was the complete opposite for us. Like we went from like speaking of mistakes, like I when I was going through that process, I was looking at being okay, like we're doing this much money a year, they're doing this much money a year, so that automatically means that we're going to do this much money a year, right? Like it's automatic, it's just going to happen, right? And yeah, it was like anything but that. Like that was one of the hardest things, and like, to the point actually where like in that first year of the acquisition, like our revenue was down from when it was just us because there was just so much going on. And like from a staffing standpoint, when we acquired that agency, we went from 12 people to 26 people overnight. So we more than doubled our staff. And like that, on one hand, it was awesome because we got, like we added some unbelievable people to our team. But now, you're looking at like some redundancies. Okay, like we already had a graphic designer. Now we've got another graphic designer, right? And we had 2 content people. Now we have 6 content people, and like, all these different things. And from a client standpoint, to answer that question, it was actually pretty easy because, like I said earlier, like we were lacking in some infrastructure that this agency had, and so we actually adopted a lot of their processes in that standpoint, which made it super easy for their clients and probably made it better for our existing clients because now there was a little bit more process and procedure there. But yeah, like working through like stuff as simple as like software subscriptions, right? Like it's you've got like 35 different platforms that you're using. Like they were using one platform for social media management, we were using another, so then you got to go through the whole like song and dance of debating like, okay, what one, now we've got to figure out what one we want to keep using together. Like they were Google based, we were Microsoft based, so it's like you got to go through that whole process and like figure out, okay, like an administrative software, all those things, right? So it was a lot. Like that part was way more than I expected. I think if had you asked me 2 months before the deal closed, I would say, oh, that this will probably take us you know 2 to 3 months to work through, and then we'll be sailing, right? And it was like 12 to 15 months just figuring that all out, like getting to a point where the team we have now is amazing. And like our core, the clients we have now, the same thing. And like we finally are now like back into what I would call like forward progress. Like, we've got our infrastructure, but now we're building it out and it's like expanding our technology ecosystem and our software stack and like all those things to make our lives and our clients' lives more efficient. Whereas for those last 15 months, we were really just trying to like keep our head above water and just make sure that everything was still working and that we were doing the best job we could.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that, because everybody tries to make it like it's stars and rainbows. You're like, nah, it was a
Man, it
challenge.
was terrible at times. Like there was times where like one of the questions I got like right before we like completed the acquisition is like, why do you want to do this? Like the company's doing well as it is now. Like there's no like this isn't a move to save things or like this is just like there was concern that was maybe like an ego play and maybe it was a little bit, but it was like for me it was trying to build something that would, like I said earlier, would have some longevity to it. And I didn't see us going in that direction the way we were. I saw us as needing that acquisition to take that next step and continue, the path to where we want to be, which again, like over those 12, 15 months, there was some definite regret there at times, but we've kind of worked through it now a little bit. And I'm starting to see that light at the end of the tunnel.
There you go. Long-term vision. You saw the long term. You saw the
Well, I hope I saw the long-term vision, but yeah, that was the goal.
There you go. All right. What's something you used to believe about money or growth that you had to completely unlearn?
Money or growth.
I mean, clearly that acquisitions are easy. That's an easy one.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't. I think it was more to do with like the more revenue you're generating, the easier it would get. But it's actually the opposite. Like like I mean, man, like life was simple when it was just Matt and I, right? Like it was just the two of us, like only worried about two salaries, so to speak, and like and it was real short line of communication in the sense that it was just the two of us and we're good buddies. So it made it easy. Well, growth means more staff, which means more management, which means more, a lot of fun. Like I said, we've got a great team and a lot of people I really love being around, but inevitably it's, that many more people you're responsible for, which is something I take, really seriously too. Like it's, we've like it, I try not to, and I don't take it lightly that like I'm, these people are relying on Matt and I for paychecks and putting food on their own tables, right? And so the more you generate as a business, the more responsibility you have to other people and yeah. So I think whereas I think at the start if I thought about growing our revenue, I probably would have looked at it as like growing our like, okay, great. Like, Matt and I are going to be able to take more vacations or whatever. And life's going to get easier. And just not exactly the case.
There you go. I feel that. All right. Last question before we wrap. If you could go back in time and you knew like everything right to this second, you get in the time machine and you can go back in time and you got 30 seconds to talk to 18 or 22-year-old Jared, what do you tell him?
If first answer was 18 or 22-year-old Jared, I would have started the business at 22 as opposed to 38. That would be my first comment.
There you go.
But I think just appreciate the value of taking time and building the right infrastructure and analyzing the details before you jump in. Because I think for me, working in like a sales function was somewhat easy. It came naturally to me. And so we just started and we just went for it. Right. And so, and didn't really take the time to put the right pieces in place around us, be it through staff, contractors, or even just documentation for that matter to like build in a consistent, sustainable way. We've had to do it on the fly. So we're there, but like, it would have been a lot easier to spend those first few months getting organized.
There you go. All right, y'all. Well, there you have it. Like these are the type of people that are operating at a high level coming in. We've talked through partnerships. Let me hit my notes, y'all. I keep my notes. All right, we talked about what it's like to work with a partner, some of the things you should have in that partnership agreement to set you both up for success whenever that inevitable transition comes. We talked about making sure in that you have like responsibilities, obligations, roles, job description. How do you exit when that time comes? How does profit share work? We talked about then he kept going, kept growing, and then he acquired a business. And we talked through not just looking at the acquisition in terms of adding more revenue, your revenue plus mine, yay, we're winning, but looking at those details, looking at the company culture and how do we do that? What kind of tech stack do you guys have? Which one do we go with? We got duplicate roles. Who stays? Who goes? Who moves to a different seat? All of those things are super important, and that it's okay to not always just be focused on the niche. Maybe you start there, but as you grow, being willing to diversify and better what's the word, support yourself in regards to still being able to play this game for the long run, especially knowing that AI is coming. We love AI, we use it, but how do we kind of insulate ourselves so that we don't get taken out because it takes out our main thing? So tell the people again, if they're like, man, this guy's dope, or I want to work with him, I want to pick his brain, I want to be coached by him, whatever, name of company, and the best ways they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, for sure. Jared Harmon, One Group Agency is the company. Best ways, onegroupagency.ca. Jared at onegroupagency.ca. That's the quickest way. I respond to all my emails, much to my wife's detriment usually, and my kids. But yeah, that's usually the best way to reach me.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much, guys. These are the type of people that we want to bring on to give you value, to show you that there's multiple ways to grow, to scale, to do this the right way, and still be able to have that balance. We didn't even get to really even talking about wifey and the fam, but clearly he's getting the time in. There's probably some jokes there, but we want wifey to know, Mrs. Harmon, you know he loves you. He is so thankful for you. Exactly. But with all that being said, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. Make sure you share this episode, comment, talk about all the good things you learned from it. We're going to be committed to continuing to bring you great people that can give you guys even more value so that you too can create this legacy, not only of something that you're building, but also having something to leave. Until the next episode.